What's going on, people? Welcome back to the channel. So I thought I'd do a quick match reaction to the game last night, which finished Celtic 2, Graz 1 in the Europa League. Celtic getting a much needed victory and their first in the Europa League with a 2-1 victory over the Austrian champions at Celtic Park. So from the highlights that I've seen, Celtic fully deserved to win the game. It was Celtic's best performance of the season, as far as I've heard. I didn't watch the game because, as I said, I'm not watching any games until the situation improves and the border removed, and something else and everything changes. But apparently, Celtic were the better side. From the highlights that I've seen, Celtic played with a lot more intensity. Engels was excellent. Engels came into the side, made a real difference. Again, he needs to play all the time. You know, I think he's class. I really do. On his day, I think he's a really good player. He's just a really good footballer. Engels deserves to be in the team every week. Tierney played a lot better in that game from what I've seen. Tanecki was excellent. Again, you know, he's beating that fullback every single time for them. You know, he roasted them all the time. Graz were very lucky to be 1-0 up at half-time. But they did also hit the post in the first half. So in that regard, you know, you could say, well, Graz had a chance to make it 2-0. They didn't take it. But yeah, Celtic started. They started quite well. You know, Iheanacho getting injured was so disappointing. Very concerning. Iheanacho and Alistair Johnson. And also Carter Vickers at the end of the game. All three of them are now doubts for the game on Sunday against Hearts. Very disappointing. Lack of investment again. It really is. You know, Johnny Kelly didn't do himself any harm. Pardon me, from the highlights I've seen tonight. You know, could he possibly start on Sunday? Possibly. It'll either be him, Yamada, or maybe Maeda if Maeda's fit. But I don't know if Maeda's going to make it in time. But yeah, Johnny Kenny came in. You know, that was disappointing to lose all three of them. Kobe Donovan came on. Again, excellent. Donovan got an assist for the goal that got settled back into the game. Done really well, I think. Made a few mistakes, but, you know, he is young. You know, can't really criticise Donovan too much. He did help us get back into the game. But yes, Graz took the lead. Celtic had a chance, you know, before then. You know, Johnny Kenny does excellently. You know, he robs a defender. You know, defender's dallying on the ball. Johnny Kenny takes it off him, runs towards goal and hits it just wide. That was really unlucky. Johnny Kenny straight away in on the action, you know, showing the desire. You know, he's very unlucky, Johnny Kenny, not to score. But Graz, against the run of play, in my opinion, scored an amazing goal. You know, it was a great goal. You know, Hatate, the midfield needed to get back quicker, but, you know, you know, Graz, you know, it's a really good goal. You know, the midfielder picks up from about 25 yards out, 30 yards out, he hits it straight into the top corner, past Schmeichel. I criticised Schmeichel for the goal against Braga, but this one was straight in the corner. You know, it was a really good goal from Graz, and they were 1-0 up. Graz then hit the post. You know, that was very lucky. You know, Celtic, you know, caught out with two passes. Again, just not ball watching, you know, not following your men. You know, Negrin and Donovan were caught out. It's very poor. And luckily, you know, nobody tracked the guy running into the box, but he hit it and it hit the post and went out. Celtic kept going. You know, they should have been level. You know, Negrin had loads of chances in this game, headers and that just went wide and stuff like that. But at half-time, it was Celtic 0, Graz 1. Second half, Celtic kept going. You know, Celtic was still the better side, I think, from the highlights that I've seen. You know, Hatate had a great chance. You know, it's really good play, you know, from Kenny. You know, Kenny flicked it. You know, Celtic, I lost the ball. Donovan then won it back. I think it was Donovan. Came to Hatate. Hatate then skipped inside the defender and then hit it over the bar. I thought he was the weakest midfielder tonight. Hatate, he still doesn't look like the Rio Hatate we all know, to be honest. I thought the other three midfielders played better than him. Negrin, Engels and McGregor. You know, I'll give McGregor credit. McGregor played a lot better in that game. You know, I don't know if that was because Engels was in the team. I'm not sure, but he played a lot better last night, to be honest. Celtic did get their goal in their equaliser. It was a really good corner into the box. And, you know, it was Negrin again, you know, played it through. You know, Donovan got the ball. You know, Donovan then passed it into Scales, who was standing in the 6-yard box. You know, Scales, really good finish into the corner. past the Sturm Graz goalkeeper. Celtic were a level 1 each. You know, they deserved it. They were the better side. They deserved to be level, in my opinion, from the highlights that I've seen. Celtic then went in front. You know, it was a really good corner from Engels, who again was man of the match. He was excellent. Good ball into the box, and there was Nygren. Nygren finally got the goal that he deserved. You know, I thought Nygren played well again. You know, I thought Nygren played well. It was a bit like the Nygren at the start of the season. He had loads of chances. His finishing needs to improve, but there is a player in there. But it was a really good header from Nygren, right in the centre of the Sturm Graz penalty area. Easy for Nygren. 2-1 to Celtic. Sturm Graz then had a player sent off. Rightfully so. You know, it's a terrible challenge on Callum McGregor. You know, the guy comes running in, you know, studs high, right into McGregor's knee. You know, it's definitely a red card. Sturm Graz were down to 10 men. They didn't offer really anything after that, to be honest. Celtic could have easily scored more goals. You know, on another day, if Celtic had a clinical striker, you know, and a decent right winger, at least, you know, Celtic win that game by at least 4 or 5, you know, they really do. You know, that was a really good performance by Celtic. I'll give them credit. That was a good performance from the highlights that I've seen. Probably their best this season, to be honest, when it comes to European competition, probably overall. But yeah, Celtic got the win, you know, 2-1 against Sturm Graz. You know, Celtic needed that victory, and they got it. You know, we've got really tough games coming up in the Europa League, and we needed to win that game to stand a chance of progression getting through. You know, we got 4 points out of 3 games. You know, it's not bad, to be honest, considering where we are as a club at the moment. Huge game on Sunday against Hearts. You know, injuries going into that is very concerning. Carter Vickers, if he doesn't make it, that's a huge blow as well. You know, Carter Vickers was in extreme pain after the game, Rodgers said. Very disappointing. If he's out, you know, I don't know who we're gonna have to play there. You know, will Dane Murray have to come in? You know, personally, I think Dane Murray didn't do himself any harm when he was playing, but at the start of the season, in the odd game. But him and Scales at the back, I don't know. Obviously, Trusty is coming back from injury. Johnson being injured, potentially, you know, after just coming back. You know, that was a risk, bringing Johnson back and then throwing him into that game. And it was the same injury as well, Rodgers said. So it's very disappointing. Potentially, Johnson's going to be out longer now. You know, very disappointing. It needs to be Donovan. Ralston cannot play at right back. You know, he doesn't deserve to. You know, Ralston's been extremely poor. He's had his chances. Give Donovan the nod on Sunday against Hearts. Yeah, it's a big game, but Donovan has proven that he can do it. You know, he's been very impressive, I think, from what I've seen. You know, midfield, again, Engels needs to start. If we're going to have a chance of winning it at Tynecastle, you need Engels to play. You know, Engels on his day is really good. You know, in Europe, Engels has proven that he's such a good player. You know, against Bayern Munich, he was outstanding over the 2 games, I think. Very good last night as well. You know, Engels is excellent on his day. Very good. Leipzig as well, he was excellent last year. So, yeah, he needs to start. You know, I think Hatate possibly could be dropped. And you play Engels, Nygren and McGregor. That's something we haven't really seen, you know. But possibly, because I think Hatate is an empty jersey at this point in time. You need to start Tanetki. I thought Tanetki was excellent again. Lack of end product is the only thing with Tanetki. You know, he beats the fullback every time, but it's just that final ball from Tanetki. But, you know, he was excellent. I'm not going to take it away from him. It was a really good performance. And then Balaguisha, I would start on Sunday. We need a right winger. You know, Forrest can't start. He's a great servant, but he can't start games. And then obviously Yang should be not even in the squad, let alone on the pitch. You know, Yang's had this opportunity. He doesn't want to be here, so why play him? But yeah, it'll be a tough game against Hearts. You know, I won't, like I said, I'll keep an eye on it. I'm not watching games, as I said. But I will do a reaction to the highlights when I see them. I'm not confident going into this game, as you know. You know, from the highlights that I've seen, it's giving me a little bit of faith going into it, but we'll see what happens on Sunday. Thanks for watching this video. Take care. I'll see you guys on Sunday after the Hearts match. Peace.